Hello there, and welcome to Sleepy Science. Most people think insomnia means the body is broken, that something has gone wrong with sleep, but scientists discovered something much stranger. When people with insomnia lie awake at night, their brain is not simply refusing to sleep. In many cases, it's actually working harder than it does during the day. Certain parts of the brain remain unusually alert, almost as if they are standing guard while the rest of the body is trying to rest. Which raises a strange question. If the body is exhausted and the bed is comfortable, then what exactly is the brain waiting for before it finally allows sleep to happen? To understand that, we first need to understand what insomnia really is. Late at night when the lights are off and the house becomes quiet, many people notice a strange moment. They look around the room, the clock shows a very late hour, and suddenly they realize something surprising. Everyone else seems to be asleep, but they are still awake. The streets outside are silent, the phones stop ringing, and even the busy sounds of the day slowly disappear. This moment can feel unusual because the human brain is used to being awake when the world is active. During the day there are voices, traffic, and many small distractions. At night, those signals almost vanish. Because of that, the mind becomes more aware of its own thoughts. Many people think they are the only person awake at that moment, but the truth is very different. All around the world, in thousands of bedrooms, other people are also lying in bed, looking at the ceiling, quietly wondering the same simple question: why is sleep not arriving yet? One interesting reason for this feeling has to do with how the brain handles quiet environments. During the day, the brain receives a huge amount of information. Cars pass by, phones vibrate, people talk, and screens flash with new messages. The brain must constantly sort through these signals and decide which ones are important. Because of that busy process, many small thoughts never get much attention. But when night arrives, something changes. The number of outside signals drops quickly. The room becomes calm and the brain suddenly has less work to do. When that happens, the mind starts focusing on internal thoughts instead. Ideas, memories, plans, and small worries can suddenly feel much louder than they did earlier in the day. Nothing has actually increased in volume, but the brain is now paying closer attention. This is why a small thought at night can feel big. With fewer distractions, the mind finally notices everything it ignored before. Many people believe insomnia is rare, something that only happens to a few unlucky individuals. But sleep researchers discovered something very different when they began studying sleep patterns around the world. Surveys from many countries show that a large number of adults experience trouble sleeping at some point in their lives. In fact, millions of people report difficulty falling asleep, staying asleep, or waking up earlier than expected. This means that lying awake at night is not an unusual experience at all. It is actually one of the most common sleep problems humans face. Scientists believe modern lifestyles play a big role. Bright lights, busy schedules, late meals, and constant information from screens can confuse the body's natural sleep signals. When people learn that insomnia is so common, something interesting often happens. The worry begins to decrease. Instead of feeling alone in the quiet room, they realize that many other people are awake somewhere, experiencing the same nighttime puzzle. Another surprising fact is that the brain does not behave the same way in darkness as it does during daylight hours. The human body contains a natural timing system, often called the internal clock. This clock watches the amount of light entering the eyes. When sunlight is present, the brain receives a signal that it is time to stay alert and active. Hormones that support wakefulness remain higher, helping people concentrate and react quickly. But when darkness arrives, a different message begins to spread through the brain. the body slowly prepares for rest. Temperature begins to lower slightly, muscles relax, and the brain releases chemicals that encourage sleep. However, this system can be sensitive. If the brain detects light, even from a lamp or a phone screen, it may become confused about whether night has truly started. When that happens, the brain may delay the sleep signal, leaving a person awake, wondering why sleep seems to be taking longer than expected. Inside the human body, there is a quiet system that keeps track of time every single day. Most people never notice it, yet it works constantly, guiding when we feel alert and when we begin to feel sleepy. Scientists often call this system the biological clock. It sits deep inside the brain, in a small area that studies light and darkness from the eyes. Throughout the day, this clock watches the environment and slowly adjusts the body. In the morning, it helps raise alertness so people can wake up and start moving. Later in the evening, it slowly prepares the body for rest. This change does not happen suddenly. It moves step by step, almost like a slow timer that runs for 24 hours. The interesting part is that this clock continues working even when we are not paying attention to it. So when someone lies awake at night, an important question appears. Is the clock perfectly aligned, or has it become slightly confused? This internal timing system follows a repeating pattern that scientists call the circadian rhythm. The word simply means a cycle that lasts about one day. Every 24 hours, the body moves through a natural pattern of energy and rest. During certain hours, the brain prefers activity, focus, and movement. During other hours, the body begins preparing for sleep. What makes this rhythm very interesting is how much it likes stability. When people go to bed around the same time each night and wake up at a similar time each morning, the rhythm becomes very steady. The brain begins predicting when sleep will arrive, and it prepares the body earlier. But when sleep times change often, the rhythm becomes less organized. Some nights the brain expects sleep later, other nights it expects it sooner. Because of that confusion, a person may lie in bed feeling tired, yet sleep does not begin quickly. The body is simply waiting for its rhythm to realign. Another quiet change happens inside the brain when evening turns into night. As darkness increases, special cells in the eyes notice the reduction of light. These cells send a message to the brain, telling it that the environment is becoming darker. After receiving this signal, the brain begins releasing a hormone called melatonin. Melatonin works like a gentle signal that tells the body it is time to slow down. Heart rate becomes calmer, muscles relax, and the feeling of sleepiness slowly increases. This process usually begins a few hours before natural bedtime. The interesting part is that melatonin does not force sleep to happen immediately. Instead, it prepares the body step by step so that sleep can begin naturally. When everything is working smoothly, people rarely notice this change at all. But when someone stays awake longer than expected, a curious question appears. Did the melatonin signal arrive too late, or was something in the environment interrupting the process? One of the biggest reasons this signal can become confused is artificial light. In earlier times, humans depended mostly on sunlight during the day and darkness at night. The brain became very good at reading this natural pattern. But modern life introduced something very powerful: bright light from screens, lamps, and electronic devices. When this light reaches the eyes late at night, the brain may believe that daytime is still continuing. Because of that misunderstanding, the release of melatonin can slow down or pause for a while. The body waits for darker conditions before starting its normal sleep preparation. This is why a person can feel tired, yet still remain awake after looking at a phone or computer for a long time. The brain is simply receiving mixed signals. Darkness says night has arrived, but artificial light suggests the day is still active. And when the brain receives two different messages, it often waits before allowing sleep to begin. Deep inside the brain, there is a very small area that quietly manages many important body functions. This area is called the hypothalamus. Even though it is small, it acts like a central control point that helps organize sleep and wake patterns every day. The hypothalamus receives signals from the eyes about light and darkness, and it also communicates with other parts of the brain that control alertness. When daylight is strong, the hypothalamus supports wakefulness and activity. When darkness increases, it begins sending different signals that prepare the body for rest. One important part of the hypothalamus helps control the release of melatonin, which slowly increases the feeling of sleepiness at night. Another group of cells helps keep the brain awake during the day so that people can stay alert. Because this system is always balancing these two states, sleep and wakefulness, it must work with careful timing. If the signals become slightly mixed, the brain may hesitate before allowing sleep to begin. Many people imagine sleep as a simple switch. They think the brain is either fully on during the day or completely off at night. But scientists discovered that sleep is much more complex than that idea. The brain never truly shuts down. Even during deep sleep, many areas remain active and continue doing important work. While a person sleeps, the brain organizes memories, processes emotions, and repairs certain systems inside the body. Brain cells communicate with each other in patterns that look different from daytime thinking, but they are still very active. This is why sleep occurs in stages instead of one long quiet period. Some stages are lighter, where the brain still reacts to sounds. Other stages are deeper, where awareness becomes much lower. Because of these different stages, the brain slowly moves toward deeper rest over time. Understanding this leads to an interesting question. If the brain never turns off completely, then what exactly changes when someone finally falls asleep? During insomnia, something unusual can happen inside the brain. Instead of moving fully toward the relaxed sleep state, some parts of the brain remain more alert than expected. Researchers studying brain activity noticed that certain areas connected to awareness and attention may continue working longer into the night. This does not mean the person is completely awake in the same way they are during the day. Instead, the brain can stay in a mixed condition where tiredness exists but full sleep has not begun. Signals related to alertness continue running, almost like a small system that refuses to power down. Because of this, the person may feel physically tired while the mind still notices small details, sounds, or thoughts. Even a quiet room can feel mentally active. Scientists believe this partial alertness explains why some people feel close to sleep, yet remain awake for long periods. The body wants rest, but the brain is still holding onto a small amount of wakefulness. To explain this strange state, researchers developed an idea called the hyperarousal theory of insomnia. The word hyperarousal simply means the brain and body remain more activated than normal, even during a time when they should be relaxing. According to this theory, people with insomnia may have nervous systems that stay slightly more alert, especially during the evening. Stress, worry, or strong mental activity during the day can sometimes keep this system active longer than expected. Instead of slowly calming down at night, the brain continues scanning the environment and processing thoughts. Heart rate may stay a little higher, and brain activity related to awareness may not reduce as quickly as it should. This does not mean the body has forgotten how to sleep. Instead, it means the brain is still behaving as if something important needs attention. When researchers explain this idea, it changes how people think about insomnia. The problem is not weakness, but a brain that is simply staying too alert for too long. Another reason sleep can arrive late has to do with certain chemicals inside the body that control alertness. One of these chemicals is a hormone called cortisol. Cortisol is often known as a stress hormone, but it also plays an important role in normal daily energy. During the morning, cortisol levels usually rise, helping people wake up and become active. As the evening approaches, these levels normally decrease so the body can relax and prepare for sleep. But when a person experiences stress, worry, or strong mental pressure during the day, cortisol can remain higher than expected. When that happens, the body receives a message that it should stay alert instead of relaxing. Heart rate may stay slightly elevated, and the brain may continue monitoring thoughts and surroundings. Even if the person feels tired, this chemical signal can delay the beginning of sleep. This leads to an interesting idea. Sometimes insomnia is not about lacking sleep, but about the body still preparing for action. Even when a person lies safely in a quiet bedroom, the brain does not completely stop monitoring the environment. A small part of the mind continues scanning for sounds, movements, or anything unusual. This behavior comes from an ancient survival system that helped humans stay safe long before modern homes existed. In early human history, sleeping deeply without awareness could be dangerous. Animals, sudden weather, or other threats might appear during the night. Because of this, the brain developed a protective habit. Even while the body rests, certain brain systems keep listening to the surroundings. They pay attention to new sounds, small changes, or unexpected signals. Most of the time, this system works quietly and does not disturb sleep, but sometimes it becomes more sensitive than necessary. A small noise, a distant sound, or even a random thought can trigger a brief moment of alertness. When that happens repeatedly, the brain continues checking the environment instead of allowing deeper sleep. This constant checking behavior is closely connected to human evolution. For thousands of years, survival depended on staying aware of possible dangers in the environment. Early humans often slept outdoors or in simple shelters where threats could appear during the night. Because of that reality, the brain developed instincts designed to protect life. These instincts encourage awareness, quick reactions, and careful attention to unusual signals. While these traits helped our ancestors survive, they can sometimes create problems in modern life. Today, most people sleep in safe homes, protected from many of the dangers that existed in the past. However, the brain still carries the same protective systems it developed long ago. When stress or worry activates these systems, the brain may behave as if it must remain alert. Instead of relaxing completely, it continues checking for problems that are not really present. This explains a curious idea. The same instincts that once protected humans can sometimes delay the arrival of sleep. Another small but powerful part of the brain plays a role in how emotions influence sleep. This area is called the amygdala. The amygdala helps process emotions such as fear, worry, excitement, and even strong memories. During the day, it reacts to emotional events and helps the brain understand what is important. But its activity does not suddenly stop at night. If a person experiences stress, excitement, or emotional tension earlier in the day, the amygdala may remain active for longer than expected. This can keep certain thoughts returning again and again while someone is trying to sleep. The brain may replay conversations, imagine future situations, or review things that happened earlier. Researchers believe the amygdala helps the brain process emotional information before sleep fully begins. Sometimes this processing finishes quickly, allowing the mind to calm down. Other times it continues longer, keeping the brain active and delaying sleep, while the mind tries to understand those emotions. When the day becomes quiet and a person finally lies down in bed, the brain often begins reviewing many thoughts that were ignored earlier. During busy daytime hours, the mind is filled with tasks, conversations, and constant information. Because of this activity, many small thoughts remain unfinished or unanswered. But when night arrives and the environment becomes calm, the brain suddenly has time to look at those ideas again. It may begin replaying events from the day, remembering conversations, or thinking about plans for tomorrow. Scientists believe this process is part of how the brain organizes information before sleep. The mind wants to place memories in order and understand what happened. Most nights this happens quickly and quietly, and sleep follows soon after. But sometimes the process takes longer. A small question may turn into several new thoughts. This creates an interesting situation where the body is resting in bed, yet the brain is still working to finish the mental tasks of the day. While a person lies awake, something surprising can also happen inside the brain. Instead of simply waiting for sleep, the mind sometimes begins searching for solutions to problems. Researchers discovered that the brain naturally likes to complete unfinished tasks. If a question, decision, or challenge remains unresolved, the brain may keep returning to it again and again. This is why many people suddenly start thinking about work problems, future plans, or personal decisions late at night. The quiet environment makes it easier for the brain to focus deeply on these ideas. In some cases, people even wake up with a new solution the next morning. This happens because the brain continued working on the problem while the person rested. But there is a small challenge in this process. When the mind becomes too interested in solving something, it may remain active longer than expected. Instead of relaxing, the brain continues analyzing details, delaying the moment when sleep can begin. When thoughts begin appearing one after another, the brain can enter a state of strong mental activity. In this state, the mind moves quickly between ideas, memories, and plans. Each thought may lead to another question, and that question can lead to yet another idea. Scientists often describe this as mental overactivity. It does not mean something is wrong with the brain. In fact, it shows the brain is working very efficiently. The problem appears when this activity continues during the time the body is trying to sleep. Sleep requires the brain to slowly reduce thinking and allow awareness to fade. But if the mind continues generating new thoughts, the transition becomes slower. Even small ideas can keep attention active. A person may think about tomorrow's tasks, a conversation from earlier, or a simple curiosity. The more attention the brain gives to these thoughts, the longer it remains in a wakeful state. This leads to a curious question about the relationship between attention and sleep. One important key to understanding sleep is the connection between attention and wakefulness. Attention is the brain's way of focusing on something important. During the day, attention helps people read, listen, solve problems, and react quickly to the environment. But attention also keeps the brain alert. When attention is strong, the brain stays awake because it believes something needs careful observation. This is why exciting movies, intense games, or serious thinking can delay sleep. The brain remains focused on the activity instead of relaxing. At night, the brain usually begins reducing attention step by step. Sounds become less important, thoughts become softer, and awareness slowly fades. This gentle reduction allows sleep to begin naturally. However, if something continues capturing attention, such as a worry, a sound, or an interesting idea, the brain may stay alert longer. In simple terms, sleep often begins only after attention finally loosens its grip on the mind. Many people do not realize how much the body depends on routine when when it comes to sleep. The internal clock inside the brain learns patterns by watching daily behavior. When someone goes to bed at a similar time each night and wakes up around the same hour each morning, the brain begins predicting when sleep should happen. It slowly prepares the body before bedtime by lowering alertness and increasing signals that support rest. But when sleep times change often, the internal clock receives mixed information. One night the body expects sleep early, another night much later. Because the pattern keeps changing, the circadian rhythm struggles to stay organized. The brain becomes uncertain about when it should begin the sleep process. As a result, a person may feel tired but still remain awake for longer than expected. This leads to an interesting question many researchers study. Is insomnia sometimes less about sleep itself and more about the timing signals becoming confused? Another common reason people remain awake longer at night involves a very familiar substance found in many drinks. Caffeine is present in coffee, tea, energy drinks, and even some sodas. Most people know caffeine helps them stay awake during the day, but fewer realize how long its effects can remain inside the body. After drinking caffeine, the body slowly breaks it down over several hours. In many cases, a significant amount can still remain active 6 to 8 hours later. During that time, caffeine continues blocking certain chemical signals in the brain that normally create sleepiness. One of those signals involves a substance called adenosine, which builds up during the day and encourages the body to rest. When caffeine blocks that signal, the brain temporarily believes it should stay alert. This creates a curious situation late at night. A person may feel physically tired, yet the brain still receives a message encouraging wakefulness instead of sleep. Another quiet change begins happening inside the body during the evening hours, long before a person actually falls asleep. Body temperature slowly begins to decrease as part of the natural preparation for rest. During the daytime, the body stays slightly warmer because muscles are active and energy use is higher. But as night approaches, the brain sends signals that reduce temperature a small amount. This cooling effect helps the body relax and makes the brain more comfortable entering sleep stages. Researchers found that this temperature drop is one of the strongest signals that bedtime is approaching. It usually begins about 1 or 2 hours before natural sleep time. If the body temperature remains higher than expected, the brain may delay sleep for a while. This explains why warm environments sometimes make it harder to fall asleep quickly. The body is still waiting for its natural cooling process to occur before allowing deeper rest. Because temperature plays such an important role in sleep preparation, certain evening habits can influence how quickly the body becomes sleepy. One surprising example involves taking a warm shower or bath before bedtime. At first, this idea seems unusual because warm water raises the temperature of the skin. But the interesting effect happens after the shower ends. When the body leaves the warm water, heat begins leaving the skin more quickly than normal. This causes the body's internal temperature to drop faster than it would on its own. That faster cooling sends a signal to the brain that night preparation has begun. As a result, many people start feeling relaxed and sleepy soon after. Scientists studying sleep noticed that this method works best when the shower happens about 1 hour before bedtime. The body then has enough time to cool down naturally. This simple routine can quietly assist the brain in moving toward sleep. The process of digestion can quietly influence how well a person sleeps at night. When food enters the stomach, the body begins working to break it down into nutrients. This requires energy, increases blood flow to the digestive system, and activates certain hormones that keep the body alert. If a person eats a large meal close to bedtime, the stomach may still be actively processing food, while the brain is trying to prepare for rest. That can lead to discomfort, a feeling of fullness, or even mild indigestion. The brain may interpret these signals as reasons to stay alert, delaying the natural sleep process. Even small meals can have a subtle effect, especially if they include sugar, caffeine, or spicy ingredients. Understanding this connection helps explain why the timing and content of food before bed are important. A calm, light evening meal allows the body to relax more easily and sleep more peacefully. Late-night meals can interfere even more directly with the signals that guide sleep. When a person eats right before lying down, the body receives conflicting messages. Darkness tells the brain that it is time to prepare for sleep, but the digestive system signals that activity is needed. This combination can confuse the internal clock and slow down the natural release of sleep-promoting hormones. Research shows that eating heavy or rich meals within 1 or 2 hours of bedtime often results in longer time to fall asleep. The stomach may feel active, heart rate may remain slightly elevated, and the mind may notice small signals from digestion. Over time, repeated late-night eating can make it harder for the circadian rhythm to remain consistent. The brain learns that the body is still active when it should be resting. Even small adjustments, like eating earlier in the evening or choosing lighter foods, can help the brain and body align for smoother, more restful sleep. Physical activity is another important factor that quietly guides the brain toward better sleep. Movement during the day signals to the body that energy is being used, muscles are active, and the nervous system is working efficiently. This activity gradually helps regulate internal timing, alertness, and hormone release. Active muscles produce chemical signals that can improve mood and reduce stress, which makes it easier for the brain to relax later. People who remain sedentary often report feeling restless at night, even if they are tired. By engaging in daily movement, the body naturally encourages the internal clock to function more predictably. Exercise also influences temperature regulation, heart rate, and metabolic processes, all of which contribute to smoother sleep cycles. Understanding this connection explains why people often sleep better after a day that included physical activity compared to a day spent mostly sitting or lying down. Moderate exercise during the daytime appears to have particularly strong effects on sleep quality. Activities such as walking, light jogging, stretching, or even gentle housework can help the body regulate hormones and maintain consistent circadian rhythm signals. When these activities occur earlier in the day, the body has enough time to recover, muscles relax, and the brain gradually reduces alertness as night approaches. Studies show that people who exercise moderately during the day fall asleep faster, experience deeper sleep stages, and feel more refreshed in the morning. Interestingly, excessive or very late exercise can have the opposite effect, keeping the nervous system highly active and delaying sleep. The key is balance. Moderate daytime activity signals the body that energy has been used, tension has been reduced, and the brain is ready for rest later. This quiet preparation creates ideal conditions for a natural, peaceful night of sleep. Spending time in sunlight during the day plays a surprisingly important role in helping the body prepare for sleep at night. Sunlight acts as a natural signal to the brain, helping set the internal clock, or circadian rhythm, to match day and night. When a person receives enough light in the morning and afternoon, the brain can more easily recognize when night arrives and begin releasing sleep-promoting hormones like melatonin. But when sunlight exposure is limited, especially in winter months or for people who spend most of their time indoors, the brain may receive weaker signals. This can confuse the internal clock, making it harder for the body to recognize that nighttime has come. As a result, Even if the room is dark, the brain may not fully prepare for rest. People may lie in bed feeling tired but remain awake longer. This shows that sunlight during the day does more than energize. It quietly guides the body toward a natural, predictable sleep pattern. Mental stimulation is another factor that can keep sleep from arriving on time. During the day, the brain constantly receives information, solves problems, and responds to events. When someone continues to engage in mentally demanding activities close to bedtime, such as studying, intense reading, or playing challenging games, the mind can stay alert for longer than expected. Even smaller mental tasks like checking emails, thinking about plans, or solving puzzles may continue signaling the brain to remain active. When these activities happen at night, the brain interprets them as a need for attention, keeping alertness higher than it should be. This can delay the natural process of winding down, even if the body feels tired. The interesting part is that the brain does not consciously choose to stay awake. It simply continues responding to signals that suggest mental activity is still necessary. By reducing stimulation in the evening, the brain can begin slowing activity naturally, allowing sleep to arrive more easily. Some people naturally require less sleep than others, yet still function normally. Research shows that a small percentage of the population can maintain alertness, focus, and energy while sleeping fewer hours than what is considered average. These individuals do not experience chronic tiredness or other negative effects that most people would have under similar conditions. Scientists believe this is due to genetics, which influence how efficiently the brain and body complete necessary restorative processes. Even during shorter sleep periods, essential functions like memory consolidation, emotional processing, and cellular repair can occur effectively. This challenges the common belief that everyone needs 8 hours of sleep to perform well. Observing these people helps researchers understand how flexible the human sleep system can be. It also raises curiosity about why most of the population requires longer rest while a few thrive with less. Understanding this difference shows that sleep is not one size fits all, and the brain can be surprisingly adaptable to shorter rest periods. The individuals who naturally sleep less are often called short sleepers. Short sleepers typically require only 5 to 6 hours of sleep per night to feel fully rested. Their brains and bodies are able to complete essential sleep cycles more efficiently than the average person. Scientists studying these people found that certain brain regions may recover faster, while hormone release and cellular repair processes remain effective despite shorter sleep duration. Being a short sleeper is not the same as insomnia. People with insomnia struggle to sleep enough, but short sleepers naturally require less rest and rarely experience fatigue. This condition is rare, affecting only a small fraction of the population. Interestingly, short sleepers often report that their alertness remains high throughout the day, and they may even accomplish more in fewer hours. Researchers are curious about what genetic or neurological differences allow this pattern. Observing short sleepers provides insight into the diversity of human sleep needs and reminds us that the amount of sleep necessary can vary naturally between individuals. In ancient times, humans did not sleep in one long stretch as most people do today. Historical studies show that people often slept in two separate segments during the night. This pattern allowed the brain and body to rest while also accommodating social, practical, and safety needs. The night was divided naturally by darkness, with people waking briefly in the middle of it. During this wakeful period, some individuals engaged in quiet activities, such as talking, reading, prayer, or even tending to small household tasks. Because artificial lighting was not available, Staying awake for part of the night felt normal and often relaxing. People learned to use this time for reflection or preparation for the next day. Modern sleep research shows that this segmented pattern allowed humans to complete their necessary rest while also taking advantage of quiet nighttime hours. Understanding this history can help explain why some people occasionally wake in the middle of the night even today. These two segments of sleep were often called first sleep and second sleep. First sleep usually began a few hours after sunset, allowing the body to complete the initial stage of rest. After several hours, people would naturally wake for a short period, which could last from a few minutes to an hour. During this awake period, the mind could be calm, alert, or reflective, and many people took the time to process thoughts from the day. After this brief awakening, they returned to bed for the second sleep, completing the remaining stages of rest. Historical accounts describe this as a normal, healthy pattern. It allowed the brain to reset and the body to complete all necessary restorative processes. Some researchers even suggest that first and second sleep helped improve memory consolidation and emotional processing. Observing this pattern challenges the modern idea that uninterrupted sleep is always necessary, showing that the human sleep system is more flexible than commonly believed. The arrival of artificial lighting changed human sleep patterns dramatically. Before electric lights, people relied on sunlight during the day and darkness at night. Candles or oil lamps provided only limited light, making it natural to sleep earlier and in two segments. But with the invention of bright electric lights, humans gained the ability to extend active hours far into the evening. Evening activities, work, and entertainment could continue long after sunset, which delayed the body's natural signals for rest. The circadian rhythm became adjusted to later bedtimes, often shortening total sleep or reducing the first and second sleep pattern. As a result, many people began sleeping in one long stretch instead of two segments. While this allowed more evening productivity, it also created new challenges. The brain sometimes struggled to recognize when rest should begin, contributing to delayed sleep and occasional insomnia. Modern lifestyles, full of artificial light, screens, and late activities, continue to influence these changes in natural sleep patterns. Interestingly, humans are not the only species affected by disruptions in sleep. Animals also experience interruptions and irregular sleep patterns in response to environmental changes. In the wild, noises, predators, temperature changes, or food availability can influence when and how animals sleep. Even domestic pets like cats and dogs may have disrupted sleep due to human schedules, lights, or noises. Studies show that when animals are exposed to artificial lighting, unusual sounds, or irregular feeding times, their sleep quality can decrease, and alertness may remain higher than normal. Some birds, for example, take shorter naps during bright nights, while certain mammals remain partially alert if they sense movement nearby. This shows that sleep disruption is not purely a human problem. It is a natural response to environmental signals. Understanding this connection can help explain why waking during the night, even briefly, may be a normal biological response rather than a purely modern problem. Some animals have developed an extraordinary way to rest while staying alert to danger. Certain species, such as dolphins, whales, and some birds, can sleep with only half of their brain at a time. While one half rests, the other half remains awake and monitors the environment. This allows the animal to breathe, move, or stay alert for predators while still receiving the benefits of sleep. The awake half of the brain ensures survival, while the resting half completes necessary processes like memory consolidation and repair. Even though it seems unusual, This adaptation shows how flexible the brain can be in balancing rest and alertness. Humans do not naturally have this ability, but understanding it helps explain why some creatures can rest in very challenging environments. It also highlights the fact that sleep is not always a full shutdown. Rest can happen in stages, in pieces, or even in one part of the brain, while another part remains active, quietly maintaining awareness and survival. A related phenomenon in humans is something scientists call microsleep. Microsleep happens when the brain briefly falls into a sleep-like state for just a few seconds. Even though the eyes may remain open, the brain is temporarily resting, and the person may stop paying attention for a short period. This often happens when someone is extremely tired, such as after long hours without sleep, during monotonous tasks, or while driving late at night. The brain seizes the opportunity to catch a very small amount of rest, even if the body appears awake. Microsleep is so short that people often do not notice it, yet it can affect reactions, awareness, and performance. Researchers study microsleep to understand how the brain balances the need for sleep with the demands of staying awake. This shows that even tiny moments of rest can be biologically important and help the brain maintain function when longer sleep has not yet occurred. Sometimes people fall asleep for just a few seconds without realizing it. This usually happens when the body is extremely tired and the brain has been awake far longer than usual. During these brief moments, the brain enters a sleep state for a short period, but the person may not notice any sensations or changes. This can occur while sitting quietly, reading, or even driving, which makes it potentially dangerous. The brain uses these seconds to perform small restorative processes that reduce sleep pressure, refresh attention, and restore a tiny amount of energy. Interestingly, even though it is very brief, this small sleep can help a person feel slightly more alert afterward. Understanding this helps explain why some people suddenly wake up after nodding off without remembering it. The brain has a remarkable ability to take these short opportunities for rest when full sleep is not yet available, protecting function in challenging situations. Even lying quietly in bed without fully sleeping can give the brain partial rest. When a person closes their eyes, relaxes muscles, and reduces movement, certain brain systems begin slowing activity. Blood flow patterns change, heart rate lowers slightly, and the nervous system begins reducing alertness. These small changes help the brain recover from the day's mental activity even before deep sleep begins. Researchers found that periods of quiet wakefulness can improve memory, reduce stress, and make the brain more ready for sleep when it eventually arrives. Even if someone is not fully asleep, simply lying calmly in a dark, comfortable environment allows the body to reset certain systems and prepare for restorative rest. This shows that sleep exists on a spectrum, from full awareness to light rest to deep stages of sleep. The brain can benefit at each step, quietly performing important work while the body remains still and peaceful. As a person lies quietly preparing for sleep, the brain begins to slow down its activity gradually. During the day, brain waves move quickly, helping with thinking, problem solving, and attention. These fast signals allow people to react to the environment, remember details, and focus on tasks. But as night approaches, and the body receives signals that it is time to rest, brain wave activity begins changing. The waves become slower and more rhythmic, creating a calmer state of mind. This gradual slowing is a key step in moving from full wakefulness to sleep. It does not happen suddenly. Instead, the brain transitions smoothly over several minutes. During this time, thoughts may appear softer, awareness less sharp, and attention less focused. This process prepares the mind for the lighter stages of sleep, where deeper restorative functions can begin. The slowing of brain waves shows that the transition into sleep is a careful, step-by-step process that sets the stage for rest. Before sleep fully begins, a person may enter a state called relaxed wakefulness. During this stage, the brain produces a type of wave known as alpha waves. These waves move more slowly than the active brain waves of daytime thinking. Alpha waves are often associated with calm focus, light meditation, or quiet reflection. The presence of alpha waves signals that the mind is no longer fully alert, but not yet asleep. Many people notice this stage while lying in bed with eyes closed, listening to soft sounds, or simply resting. Breathing becomes slower, and the heart rate begins to settle into a calmer rhythm. Alpha waves prepare the brain to transition into the first stages of sleep smoothly. By understanding this state, it becomes clear why relaxing activities in the evening, like deep breathing, reading lightly, or listening to soft sounds, can help the brain move into sleep naturally and gently, without sudden jolts or interruptions. Once the body enters the earliest stages of sleep, the brain begins producing theta waves. These waves move slower than alpha waves and are associated with light sleep and early rest. During theta activity, awareness of the environment decreases, and the mind begins processing memories, emotions, and information from the day. People may notice fleeting images, brief thoughts, or a sense of floating in and out of consciousness. Theta waves indicate that the brain is gradually disengaging from full wakefulness, moving toward deeper restorative stages. This early stage is essential for preparing the brain and body for complete sleep. Even small disruptions during this period can affect the smooth progression into deeper sleep, which is why maintaining a quiet, dark, and comfortable environment helps. Observing theta waves helps researchers understand how the brain transitions from alertness to rest. This process demonstrates that sleep begins gradually, and the early stages of theta activity are critical for healthy, restorative sleep. As the brain slows and enters early sleep, the body also begins relaxing gradually. Muscles loosen tension, heart rate decreases, and breathing becomes slower and more rhythmic. Even small muscle groups, like those in the face, jaw, or shoulders, start releasing tightness accumulated during the day. This progressive relaxation is closely linked with the slowing of brain waves. The body is signaling that it is safe to enter deeper stages of sleep. In some cases, people may notice a gentle heaviness in their limbs or a feeling of sinking into the bed. This natural process reduces energy use and prepares the body for repair, memory consolidation, and other restorative functions. Gradual muscle relaxation also reduces minor twitches or involuntary movements, helping maintain uninterrupted sleep. By observing this process, it becomes clear that sleep is not a sudden event, but a coordinated, step-by-step transition where both brain and body slowly move toward full rest, creating ideal conditions for recovery and rejuvenation. As the body prepares for sleep, breathing begins to slow down naturally. During the day, breathing is faster and more irregular, supporting physical activity, talking, and alertness. At night, as the brain moves into relaxed wakefulness and early sleep stages, it signals the body to reduce energy use. The diaphragm and chest muscles become less active, and inhalations and exhalations lengthen, creating a slower, more rhythmic pattern. This slower breathing helps the body calm down and encourages deeper relaxation. It also improves oxygen flow to the brain in a way that supports restful sleep. Many people notice that as they lie quietly, breaths become longer and smoother without conscious effort. This change is subtle but important, signaling to the nervous system that the body can safely reduce alertness. Slower breathing helps coordinate other physiological processes, such as heart rate and muscle relaxation, making the transition into sleep smoother and more natural. Along with breathing, the heart rate gradually drops as the body prepares for rest. During wakefulness, the heart beats faster to supply oxygen and energy to active muscles and the brain. But as sleep approaches, signals from the brain reduce sympathetic activity and increase parasympathetic influence, which slows the heartbeat. This gradual decrease is not sudden. Instead, the heart gently lowers its pace over several minutes, helping the body conserve energy. A slower heart rate also reduces blood pressure slightly and signals the nervous system that the body is safe and ready for rest. This process allows the circulatory system to support relaxation without stress, creating ideal conditions for sleep. Many people notice a subtle feeling of calm in the chest or a sense of heaviness as the heart slows. This physiological change is closely connected to other sleep preparation processes, including slower breathing, muscle relaxation, and the gradual reduction of mental activity, forming a coordinated transition into sleep. As the brain transitions towards sleep, there is a noticeable shift in the way thoughts appear. During the day, thinking is usually focused, sequential, and directed towards solving problems or reacting to the environment. But as sleep approaches, the brain begins letting go of strict logical patterns. Thoughts become less structured, more fragmented, and often appear in a loose, floating way. This is a natural stage in preparing for deeper sleep. The mind may notice fleeting images, partial ideas, or sudden connections between unrelated thoughts. Attention is reduced, allowing the brain to explore memories, emotions, and sensory experiences without the pressure of decision-making. This process helps the brain relax while still maintaining awareness just enough to respond if necessary. The shift from active, directed thinking to these lighter, wandering thoughts signals that the brain is gradually preparing for the first stages of sleep, setting the stage for the hypnagogic experience that often follows naturally. During this transition, people may also experience hypnagogic imagery. These are brief, dreamlike visuals or sensations that appear while falling asleep. They can include flashes of light, simple shapes, or fragments of scenes from memory or imagination. Hypnagogic images are a normal part of the brain moving from wakefulness into early sleep stages. They reflect the loosening of structured thinking and the brain exploring sensory experiences in a less controlled way. Sometimes these images can be accompanied by sounds, feelings of falling, or small bodily sensations. Although they may feel unusual, they are harmless and show that the brain is actively processing information while preparing for deeper rest. Hypnagogic imagery can also inspire creativity, as random combinations of memories or ideas appear in ways not possible during full wakefulness. This phenomenon highlights the remarkable way the brain gradually moves from conscious thought to sleep, blending relaxation with subtle mental activity. As a person lies quietly, just before sleep, strange images sometimes appear in the mind. These images can be abstract shapes, flashes of light, or fragments of scenes that seem unusual or disconnected. They may even include brief, dreamlike sequences that feel real for a moment. The reason this happens is that the brain is gradually reducing structured thinking while still remaining partially active. The logical, problem-solving parts of the brain are slowing down, while areas involved in memory, emotion, and imagination remain active. This allows fragments of stored information to combine in unexpected ways, producing images that feel unusual or surreal. Even though they may seem random or strange, these images are completely normal. They show the brain is moving from the focused state of wakefulness into the relaxed, early stages of sleep. Understanding this helps people recognize that these visuals are part of a natural process, and they often pass quickly as deeper sleep begins. These strange images are not random glitches. They are actually signs that the brain is transitioning towards sleep. As brain wave patterns shift from alpha to theta waves, awareness of the outside world decreases while internal activity continues. The images represent the brain exploring sensory memories, emotions, and fragments of experiences without the strict structure of daytime thinking. They act like a bridge between full alertness and full sleep, helping the brain adjust gradually. In this way, the mind can begin restorative processes while remaining partially connected to the environment. Hypnagogic imagery and unusual visuals indicate that the brain is preparing for deeper stages of sleep, signaling that relaxation is progressing normally. Recognizing these signs can reassure people who notice them, showing that early sleep stages involve active processing rather than complete mental shutdown. The appearance of these images is a fascinating example of how the brain balances wakefulness, rest, and preparation for full restorative sleep. Silence at night can feel much different than during the day, and it can make even the smallest sounds seem louder. During the daytime, background noise from traffic, people, and activity keeps the brain focused on essential signals while filtering out minor sounds. At night, when the environment becomes very quiet, the brain notices even subtle noises, such as a distant hum, creaking floorboards, or the sound of breathing. These small signals can sometimes feel amplified because the auditory system is still active, scanning the environment for potential threats or changes. This heightened perception is part of the body's natural alertness system, which historically helped humans remain safe while sleeping. Even though most modern environments are safe, the brain retains this sensitivity. Understanding this phenomenon helps explain why nights often feel quieter and more intense, and why people may notice sounds that went unnoticed during the day. It also highlights how perception naturally changes in low-activity periods. Sensory perception changes in many subtle ways at night, not just in hearing. Eyes, ears, and other senses adjust to lower light levels and reduced movement in the environment. Visual processing slows, colors become harder to distinguish, and peripheral awareness decreases. Hearing becomes more sensitive to faint or sudden noises, and even touch may feel more noticeable against the skin. These changes help the brain monitor the surroundings while conserving energy for sleep. The body prioritizes signals that could indicate movement or danger while ignoring less important information. This altered perception also affects balance, temperature awareness, and even taste or smell in subtle ways. By modifying sensory focus at night, the brain ensures safety while gradually allowing relaxation. Understanding these changes explains why quiet nights often feel different from the day, and why early sleep stages include heightened awareness of certain signals, even as the body and mind prepare for rest. After dark, the brain often becomes more reflective than during the daytime. Without bright sunlight and daytime activity, the mind receives fewer signals demanding attention. Work, conversations, and external events slow down, creating a quieter environment for thought. This quiet allows the brain to examine experiences, emotions, and memories more deeply. The reflective state is supported by the natural slowing of brain waves and reduced sensory input, which gives the mind space to consider ideas it might not notice during the busy day. People may find themselves thinking about personal decisions, past events, or future plans with unusual clarity. This reflection is not forced. It happens naturally as the brain relaxes and external demands decrease. Researchers believe that this process helps with emotional processing, memory consolidation, and problem solving. The nighttime reflection shows that the mind does not simply stop when awake signals fade. Instead, it shifts into a calmer, deeper state that encourages insight and self-awareness. Interestingly, this reflective state often encourages bursts of creativity late at night, with logical thinking slightly reduced and external distractions minimized. The brain can make unusual connections between ideas, memories, and experiences. Artists, writers, and inventors throughout history have reported that some of their most original ideas emerge in the quiet hours before sleep. Without the pressures and interruptions of daytime responsibilities, the mind explores imaginative possibilities that might seem less accessible during focused, structured thinking. During this period, the brain allows memories and fragments of experiences to combine in new ways, forming fresh concepts or problem-solving approaches. Even if a person is not consciously trying to create, the brain continues organizing and connecting information. This explains why late-night thoughts can feel more inventive or insightful. Recognizing this natural increase in creativity helps people understand why certain ideas seem to appear out of nowhere when the world is quiet and the body is preparing for rest. One reason nighttime thinking can feel deeper is that reduced distractions allow the brain to focus more on internal processes. During the day, attention is divided between sensory input, tasks, and social interactions. The brain constantly monitors multiple sources of information, making it difficult to explore ideas fully. But at night, the environment becomes quieter, lighting is dim, and external demands decrease. This absence of distraction lets the mind concentrate on specific memories, emotions, or problems without interruption. The brain can follow long threads of thought that might be impossible to maintain during daytime activity. As a result, insight, reflection, and self-awareness often improve. Even simple activities, like lying in bed quietly, create space for the brain to explore internal connections. This shows that the quality of thinking is affected not only by fatigue or alertness, but also by the presence or absence of external stimulation. Nighttime provides the perfect environment for deeper, uninterrupted mental exploration. Along with reflection, the quiet hours often encourage a psychological pattern called nighttime rumination. Rumination occurs when the mind repeatedly focuses on certain thoughts, worries, or events. Unlike daytime thinking, which is usually goal-oriented or problem-solving, rumination tends to revisit the same ideas over and over. Nighttime conditions make rumination more likely because the environment is calm, distractions are low, and the brain is in a partially alert state. People may notice their mind replaying conversations, analyzing past actions, or imagining possible future scenarios. While rumination can feel uncomfortable or frustrating, it also represents the brain's attempt to process unresolved thoughts and emotions. In some cases, this repeated reflection helps the brain organize experiences, prepare for decision-making, and reduce emotional tension over time. Recognizing this natural tendency can help people distinguish between harmful overthinking and normal nighttime processing, revealing how the brain quietly continues working even when the body is preparing for sleep. As night falls, unresolved concerns often return to the mind, even if they were ignored during the day. The brain has a natural tendency to process unfinished tasks, worries, or questions when external activity slows down. During busy daytime hours, attention is focused on work, interactions, and sensory input, which keeps these thoughts at bay. But as the environment becomes quiet and distractions fade, the mind naturally brings unfinished issues back into awareness. This can include small worries, plans for tomorrow, or personal concerns that were set aside earlier. The return of these thoughts is not a sign of weakness or failure. It is a normal function of the brain's processing system. By revisiting unresolved matters, the mind can consider solutions, organize information, and reduce emotional tension. Understanding this tendency helps explain why bedtime can feel mentally busy and why the mind may seem more active at night than during the daytime, even when the body is ready for rest. One practical way to reduce nighttime thinking is through journaling. Writing thoughts down in a notebook or digital device allows the brain to release mental tension and organize ideas clearly. By recording concerns, plans, or reflections, the mind transfers these issues from active mental processing to a physical or external form. This creates a sense of closure and reduces the need for repetitive thinking at bedtime. Journaling can also provide perspective, helping a person prioritize problems and release minor worries that might otherwise replay in the mind. Even a few minutes of writing can have noticeable effects on sleep preparation. Researchers suggest that this practice strengthens the connection between conscious intention and restful sleep. By creating a structured way to acknowledge thoughts, the brain is signaled that it can safely relax, allowing sleep to occur naturally. Journaling quietly helps the mind transition from active reflection to a state ready for rest. Calming routines in the evening help signal the brain that it is time to sleep. Activities like dimming lights, listening to soft music, gentle stretching, or reading quietly create consistent cues that the body can recognize. Over time, these repeated actions teach the brain to associate certain behaviors with bedtime. The routine also reduces exposure to bright lights, stimulating sounds, and intense activity, which can confuse the internal clock. By providing predictable, soothing cues, the brain can begin releasing sleep-promoting hormones like melatonin more efficiently. These routines support relaxation of muscles, slowing of heart rate, and reduction of mental activity. Even simple practices, when performed consistently, strengthen the signal that nighttime has arrived. Understanding the importance of calming routines highlights how behavioral patterns influence physiology. The brain learns through repetition, and by linking specific activities to sleep, people can encourage a smoother, more natural transition from wakefulness to rest. This idea of using routines to guide sleep leads to the concept of sleep conditioning. Sleep conditioning involves training the brain to associate certain environments, actions, or times with sleep. For example, lying in bed only for rest, keeping lights dim, or following a regular bedtime schedule all help strengthen this connection. When the brain recognizes these consistent cues, it begins to prepare the body for sleep automatically. Over time, sleep conditioning reduces the mental resistance or alertness that can delay rest. It also helps the brain distinguish between wakeful activities and sleep-related behavior, minimizing nighttime thinking. Sleep conditioning is a practical way to align behavior with the natural signals of the body's internal clock. By creating predictable patterns, the brain learns when it is safe to relax, allowing the body to complete necessary restorative processes efficiently. This technique highlights how consistent habits influence physiology and mental readiness for sleep. Sleep research laboratories provide a unique window into understanding insomnia and other sleep problems. In these controlled environments, scientists can observe how the body and brain behave during the night, tracking patterns that are difficult to notice at home. Participants usually spend one or more nights in the lab, where sensors and monitoring equipment quietly record data on breathing, heart rate, brain activity, and body movements. Researchers can see exactly how long it takes a person to fall asleep, how often they wake, and which stages of sleep may be disrupted. By comparing these observations across different people and nights, scientists gain insight into why some individuals struggle with insomnia while others sleep soundly. The lab setting also allows controlled experiments, such as changing light, temperature, or routines, to study their effects on sleep. This careful research reveals patterns invisible in everyday life, showing the brain and body's complex coordination during rest, and helping develop strategies to improve sleep naturally and effectively. One of the main tools used in sleep studies is called polysomnography. This is a comprehensive test that measures multiple physiological functions simultaneously while a person sleeps. Sensors are attached to the scalp, chest, and limbs to track brain waves, eye movements, heart rate, breathing patterns, and muscle activity. Polysomnography provides a detailed record of what happens throughout the night, including periods of deep and light sleep, brief awakenings, and potential breathing disruptions. Scientists use this data to identify sleep disorders such as insomnia, sleep apnea, or restless leg syndrome. The process is non-invasive and safe, although it requires participants to sleep in a monitored setting. Polysomnography allows researchers to observe the interaction between different systems in the body, showing how the brain, heart, and muscles coordinate during sleep. Understanding these patterns helps uncover why sleep can be disrupted and provides valuable insight into effective treatments for people struggling to rest naturally. A key part of polysomnography is tracking brain waves throughout the night. Small electrodes placed on the scalp detect electrical activity, producing a record of brain wave patterns in real time. Different types of waves correspond to different stages of sleep and levels of alertness. For example, alpha waves appear during relaxed wakefulness, theta waves during early sleep stages, and slower delta waves during deep sleep. By analyzing these patterns, scientists can see exactly when a person transitions between stages, how long each stage lasts, and whether sleep is fragmented or continuous. This detailed monitoring reveals insights into why someone may have difficulty falling or staying asleep. Studying brain waves also helps researchers understand how mental and emotional processes interact with sleep. Tracking these electrical signals provides a clear map of the brain's activity across the night, showing the complex, rhythmic cycles that define natural rest. Sleep does not occur in one continuous state. Instead, it follows repeating cycles throughout the night. Each cycle lasts roughly 90 to 120 minutes and moves through different stages of sleep, including light sleep, deep sleep, and rapid eye movement (REM) sleep. Early cycles contain more deep sleep, which is important for physical restoration and immune function, while later cycles have longer periods of REM sleep, supporting memory consolidation and emotional processing. These cycles repeat multiple times during the night, creating a pattern that helps the body and brain restore energy, repair tissue, and process information. Interruptions in these cycles, such as waking frequently or experiencing disrupted REM sleep, can result in feelings of fatigue or poor cognitive performance the next day. Understanding the cyclical nature of sleep highlights that rest is not a uniform state, but a structured, repeating pattern of distinct stages, each serving a critical function in maintaining health and well-being. Sleep is divided into two main types: REM sleep and non-REM sleep. Non-REM sleep includes the stages where the body relaxes deeply, muscles loosen, breathing slows, and brain waves gradually slow down. This type of sleep is important for physical restoration, tissue repair, and energy conservation. In contrast, REM sleep, or rapid eye movement sleep, is when brain activity increases. Eyes move quickly under closed lids, and vivid dreams often occur. During REM, the body remains mostly still, but the brain is highly active, almost similar to wakefulness. Both types of sleep are essential, serving different purposes for the mind and body. Non-REM sleep helps the body recover physically, while REM supports cognitive functions like learning, memory, and emotional processing. The balance between these two types shifts naturally throughout the night. Understanding this difference helps explain why sleep is not uniform, and why waking during REM or non-REM stages can feel very different, either groggy or alert. Dreams occur mostly during REM sleep, when the brain is active but the body remains still. During this stage, the brain combines recent experiences, memories, and emotions into images, stories, or scenarios that can feel vivid and real. The exact reason for dreaming is still being studied, but researchers believe it helps process emotions, practice problem solving, and organize information from the day. Because REM sleep involves rapid brain activity similar to wakefulness, the mind has the capacity to create complex narratives and visuals. Most people do not notice dreams during non-REM sleep, which is quieter and more restorative physically. Interestingly, even though REM occurs multiple times during the night, the longest and most vivid dreams often happen in the later cycles. This pattern suggests that dreaming is closely linked to memory consolidation and emotional processing, helping the brain make sense of experiences while preparing the body and mind for the next day. REM sleep tends to increase as the night progresses. Early in the night, deep non-REM sleep dominates, focusing on physical restoration and slowing brain activity. As the body completes these restorative stages, later sleep cycles have proportionally longer periods of REM. This shift allows the brain more time to process information, consolidate memories, and work through emotional experiences accumulated during the day. The increasing length of REM sleep later in the night also explains why waking in the early morning can feel different, often accompanied by vivid dreams or a strong emotional impression. This natural progression highlights how sleep stages are carefully timed to support both body and brain functions. The body prioritizes physical recovery first, then dedicates later sleep periods to cognitive and emotional processing, demonstrating a sophisticated coordination between different physiological and mental needs. Understanding this timing helps explain why maintaining a full night of sleep is important for memory, mood, and overall well-being. During sleep, the brain processes memories in a complex but efficient way. While awake, the brain absorbs countless pieces of information, experiences, and sensations. Sleep, especially REM and certain non-REM stages, allows the brain to review, organize, and store these memories. Important information is strengthened and integrated into existing knowledge, while less relevant details may be discarded. This process helps improve learning, decision-making, and problem-solving skills. During REM, connections between emotions and experiences are also processed, allowing the brain to understand and manage feelings more effectively. Even the brain's quiet, deep sleep stages contribute by consolidating facts and physical skills, like practicing movements or sequences mentally. Disruptions in sleep, particularly in REM or deep sleep, can impair memory retention and cognitive performance. This reveals that sleep is not just rest for the body, but an active time for the brain to process and strengthen knowledge. Memory consolidation during sleep is a silent, continuous process that prepares the mind for waking challenges. Good sleep directly improves learning because the brain uses rest to consolidate information from the day. When a person studies, practices skills, or experiences new events, the brain stores these details in short-term memory temporarily. During sleep, especially in REM and deep non-REM stages, the brain transfers important information into long-term memory. neural connections are strengthened, making it easier to recall facts, understand concepts, or perform practice skills later. This is why students or professionals often notice better retention after a full night's sleep. In addition, sleep helps the brain filter unnecessary information, keeping the mind more focused and efficient when awake. Skipping sleep or having poor quality rest disrupts this process, making learning slower and memory weaker. The brain needs uninterrupted cycles of light, deep, and REM sleep to organize knowledge effectively. Understanding this relationship emphasizes that rest is not wasted time. It is an essential part of the learning process, allowing both body and mind to optimize performance naturally. Sleep also plays a critical role in emotional regulation. While awake, people experience stress, joy, frustration, and excitement, which the brain needs to process. During sleep, especially REM stages, the brain reviews emotional experiences, balancing responses and reducing negative effects. Hormones like cortisol, which rise during stress, naturally decline during sleep, allowing tension to ease. This processing helps people wake feeling calmer, more resilient, and better able to respond to challenges. Lack of sleep impairs emotional control, making people more reactive, irritable, or anxious. Sleep also strengthens connections in brain areas responsible for evaluating situations, empathy, and problem solving. By resting, the brain recalibrates emotional reactions and integrates experiences into memory. This is why consistent, good quality sleep is closely linked to mental health, stress management, and overall emotional well-being. Understanding the brain's emotional work at night highlights that sleep is essential not only for memory and learning, but also for maintaining psychological balance. Ironically, worrying about sleep often makes insomnia worse. When a person lies in bed anxious about falling asleep, the brain becomes more alert rather than relaxing. Thoughts about tomorrow, obligations, or fear of not sleeping create tension in both mind and body. Heart rate may rise, muscles stay tense, and stress hormones like cortisol can increase, all of which interfere with the natural sleep process. This creates a cycle. The more a person worries, the harder it becomes to sleep, which then leads to more worry. Recognizing this pattern is important because it shows that mental effort alone cannot force sleep. Instead, calming the mind and reducing pressure to sleep allows the brain to transition naturally into rest. Behavioral strategies like relaxation exercises, controlled breathing, or journaling can help interrupt this cycle. Understanding the impact of worry helps explain why insomnia is not simply a physical problem, but also a mental one, requiring strategies that ease both mind and body. This brings us to the paradox of trying too hard to sleep. The more a person focuses on forcing sleep, the less likely it is to occur. Sleep is an automatic process controlled by brain chemistry, circadian rhythms, and relaxation signals, not conscious effort. When the mind exerts pressure, it increases alertness, activates stress pathways, and counteracts the brain's natural preparation for rest. People often notice that lying in bed trying to sleep actually keeps them awake longer. The paradox highlights the importance of letting go and creating conditions that naturally encourage sleep, such as a dark room, comfortable environment, and consistent routines. By shifting focus away from must-sleep thinking and toward relaxation, the brain receives the signal that rest is allowed. Understanding this paradox helps explain why mindfulness, quiet reflection, or gentle bedtime rituals are more effective than forcing sleep through sheer willpower, showing that natural processes cannot be rushed. Relaxation works better than effort because sleep is a natural process that cannot be forced by willpower alone. When the mind tries too hard to sleep, It activates alertness systems, increases heart rate, and raises stress hormones, all of which counteract the body's preparation for rest. In contrast, relaxation techniques calm the nervous system, slow breathing, loosen muscles, and allow brain waves to transition gradually from wakefulness to sleep stages. Activities like deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, or gentle meditation encourage the body to recognize it is safe to rest. By focusing on letting go rather than controlling sleep, the brain naturally shifts into the restorative cycles necessary for memory, emotional regulation, and physical repair. Relaxation signals the body to release melatonin and reduces the production of stress hormones, creating ideal conditions for sleep. This demonstrates that creating a calm, predictable environment and mindset is far more effective than trying to make sleep happen through mental effort alone. Acceptance can further reduce sleep anxiety by changing how a person responds to sleeplessness. Instead of worrying about not sleeping or counting hours awake, accepting the current state reduces mental tension. When a person stops resisting wakefulness, the brain perceives less threat and alertness decreases. This relaxed attitude lowers heart rate, reduces muscle tension, and allows calming neurotransmitters to dominate, creating conditions where sleep can naturally occur. Acceptance does not mean giving up on sleep, but recognizing that forcing it often worsens insomnia. By embracing the quiet and letting the mind rest without pressure, the body can enter light sleep stages more easily. Over time, practicing acceptance retrains the brain to respond calmly to bedtime, reducing racing thoughts and anxiety. This mental shift helps break cycles of worry that keep people awake, showing that mindset and emotional approach are as important as routines and environment in achieving restorative sleep. Cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, often called CBTI, is a structured method that helps people change thoughts and behaviors that interfere with sleep. The therapy focuses on identifying patterns like worry, overthinking, or using the bed for activities other than sleep. It teaches strategies to reduce anxiety, create healthy sleep routines, and strengthen the brain's natural sleep cues. Techniques include stimulus control, sleep restriction, relaxation exercises, and changing unhelpful beliefs about sleep. The goal is to retrain the mind and body to respond to bedtime as a safe and predictable time for rest. CBTI is widely studied and effective because it addresses both the mental and physical aspects of insomnia. By gradually reshaping habits and thought patterns, the brain learns to relax at night, allowing natural sleep cycles to resume. This approach demonstrates that insomnia is not a permanent condition and can improve when the mind and body are guided with consistent, structured strategies. Stimulus control methods are an essential part of improving sleep. These techniques involve changing behaviors to strengthen the association between the bed and sleep. For example, going to bed only when sleepy, using the bed only for sleep and intimacy, and getting out of bed if unable to sleep all help the brain link the bedroom environment with rest rather than wakefulness. Reducing exposure to bright lights, screens, or stimulating activities before bed also signals to the body that it is time to relax. Stimulus control minimizes mental and physical cues that keep the brain alert, creating a consistent environment where sleep can occur more reliably. Over time, these practices retrain the circadian rhythm and reinforce the brain's natural sleep-wake cycle. By controlling external cues and behavioral patterns, stimulus control teaches the mind to recognize when it is safe to rest, making falling asleep faster and staying asleep longer a more achievable, natural process. Getting out of bed when unable to sleep is a surprisingly effective technique because it prevents the brain from associating the bed with frustration and wakefulness. Lying awake and staring at the ceiling can increase anxiety, raise heart rate, and trigger stress hormones, all of which make sleep even harder. By leaving the bed and moving to a quiet, dimly lit area, the brain receives a new signal that rest is not forced but optional. Simple activities like reading softly, listening to calming sounds, or gentle stretching help redirect attention away from worry and allow the mind and body to relax. Once drowsiness returns naturally, going back to bed strengthens the association between the bed and sleep. Repeating this process teaches the brain that the bed is for rest, not stress, reducing the mental tension that perpetuates insomnia. This approach emphasizes that small behavioral adjustments can have a powerful impact on achieving restorative sleep. Consistent bedtime routines retrain the brain by providing clear signals that it is time to prepare for sleep. When the same actions are performed each evening, such as dimming lights, brushing teeth, or reading quietly, the brain learns to expect rest. Over time, these routines strengthen the connection between environmental cues and sleep readiness, making it easier to fall asleep without conscious effort. The repetition also reduces mental resistance, signaling that it is safe to relax. Predictable routines help regulate the circadian rhythm, supporting the natural release of melatonin and calming neurotransmitters. People who maintain consistent routines often experience shorter sleep latency, fewer awakenings, and more restorative sleep. The brain becomes conditioned to recognize bedtime as a signal for relaxation, reducing anxiety or overthinking at night. This method highlights how simple, repeated behaviors can gradually train the body and mind to transition smoothly from wakefulness to rest, making sleep a reliable and natural part of the daily schedule. Dim lighting before bedtime has a powerful effect on preparing the brain for sleep. Bright light, especially from screens or overhead lights, signals the brain that it is daytime, suppressing melatonin production and keeping alertness high. By lowering light levels in the evening, the brain detects darkness and begins releasing sleep-promoting hormones naturally. Soft, warm lighting creates a calm environment, reducing stimulation and encouraging relaxation of both body and mind. This visual cue supports the transition from active wakefulness to early sleep stages. Dim lighting also helps signal the circadian rhythm, telling the body that it is time to wind down. Even small adjustments, like using bedside lamps or avoiding electronic screens, can significantly improve the brain's readiness for sleep. The effect of lighting demonstrates that environmental factors strongly influence physiological processes, and by controlling light exposure, people can create conditions that naturally support faster and more restorative sleep. Slow breathing before bedtime has a calming effect on both the mind and body, preparing the nervous system for rest. When the breath slows, the heart rate naturally decreases, muscles relax, and stress hormone levels drop. Slow, deep breaths signal the parasympathetic nervous system to take over, counteracting daytime alertness and tension. Focusing on breathing also helps redirect attention away from racing thoughts or worries that might interfere with sleep. Techniques like counting breaths, extending exhalations, or performing gentle diaphragmatic breathing encourage this relaxation response. The rhythmic pattern of slow breathing supports the natural transition from wakefulness to sleep stages, allowing the brain to shift toward alpha and theta wave activity. Many people notice a sense of heaviness or calm spreading through the body as breathing slows. Incorporating slow breathing into bedtime routines strengthens the mind-body connection, demonstrating that simple physiological adjustments can significantly enhance the ease and quality of sleep, making the transition to rest smoother and more restorative. The body has a remarkable ability to naturally correct sleep loss over time. When a person experiences a short night of sleep, the brain and body adjust by increasing sleep intensity and duration during the following nights. Deep non-REM sleep may be longer, allowing more physical restoration, while REM sleep can also lengthen to support memory consolidation and emotional processing. This recovery process does not require extreme measures. The body subtly balances itself as long as normal sleep patterns resume. Hormonal signals, brain wave patterns, and circadian rhythms all work together to restore equilibrium. Even small amounts of extra rest, like going to bed slightly earlier or napping briefly, contribute to this recovery. The body's natural correction system demonstrates how resilient sleep is and how it prioritizes essential functions over extended wakefulness. Understanding this helps reduce anxiety about occasional sleepless nights, showing that the body actively works to maintain health and performance even after minor sleep disruptions. One bad night of sleep rarely causes long-term harm because the body compensates naturally over time. While fatigue, irritability, and reduced focus may appear the next day, the brain gradually restores essential functions through recovery sleep in subsequent nights. Short-term sleep loss increases the intensity of deep and REM sleep, helping the mind and body catch up on important processes like memory consolidation, emotional regulation, and tissue repair. Occasional sleeplessness does not permanently damage cognitive performance or physical health as long as regular sleep resumes. This resilience demonstrates that the body prioritizes restorative processes when given the opportunity, highlighting the adaptability of the sleep system. Understanding that one night of poor sleep is unlikely to cause lasting harm can reduce stress and worry, which themselves often interfere with sleep. By trusting the body's natural recovery mechanisms, people can maintain perspective, avoid unnecessary anxiety, and focus on restoring regular sleep patterns for long-term health and well-being. The brain gradually rebuilds sleep pressure after periods of wakefulness to ensure restful sleep occurs. Sleep pressure is the body's natural drive to sleep, increasing the longer a person stays awake. Chemicals, neural signals, and metabolic activity in the brain all contribute to this pressure. As wakefulness continues, adenosine levels rise, signaling the brain that rest is needed. The longer a person remains awake, the stronger this signal becomes, eventually making sleep irresistible. During sleep, adenosine is cleared, allowing the brain to return to a state ready for the next day. This gradual accumulation explains why even after a short night, the body can recover by building sleep pressure again the following night. The system demonstrates the brain's ability to balance rest and wakefulness naturally, ensuring that the body receives sufficient restoration over time. Understanding sleep pressure shows that sleep is a dynamic, regulated process rather than a passive state, controlled by both chemical and behavioral factors. Adenosine is a key chemical in the brain that plays a central role in creating sleepiness. Throughout the day, as cells use energy, adenosine accumulates in the brain, acting as a signal that the body needs rest. Higher levels of adenosine increase sleep pressure, making it harder to stay awake and easier to fall asleep at night. During sleep, especially deep non-REM stages, adenosine is gradually cleared from the brain, reducing sleepiness and preparing the body for alertness the next day. Caffeine works by temporarily blocking adenosine receptors, which is why it keeps people awake despite accumulated sleep pressure. The natural rise and fall of adenosine help regulate the timing and intensity of sleep, linking chemical activity directly to circadian rhythms and behavioral patterns. By understanding adenosine's role, it becomes clear why consistent wakefulness and restorative sleep are necessary for maintaining energy, focus, and overall health. and why the body has a built-in system to signal when rest is required. The longer a person stays awake, the stronger the body's need for sleep becomes. As hours pass, sleep pressure rises, adenosine accumulates, and the brain's alertness gradually declines. Mental focus decreases, reaction times slow, and even simple tasks require more effort. Eventually, the brain reaches a point where it can no longer resist rest. This is why extreme sleep deprivation leads to involuntary microsleeps or sudden lapses into sleep. The body cannot fight this natural drive indefinitely, no matter how much someone tries to stay alert. This built-in mechanism ensures survival because sleep is essential for brain function, memory, emotional regulation, and physical restoration. Understanding that longer wakefulness forces sleep naturally can reduce anxiety about occasional late nights. It emphasizes that sleep is not optional but a biological necessity. Even when the mind resists, the body prioritizes restorative processes, showing that the urge to sleep is a powerful, unavoidable signal that maintains health and prepares the body and brain for optimal performance. The body cannot stay awake forever because sleep is critical for basic survival functions. Extended wakefulness impairs cognitive abilities, emotional stability, and coordination, making simple activities increasingly difficult. At extreme levels of sleep deprivation, hallucinations, memory lapses, and even microsleeps occur, demonstrating the brain's inability to function without rest. Vital systems, including metabolism, immune function, and hormonal regulation, also begin to falter. Sleep acts as a protective mechanism, allowing the body to repair tissues, consolidate memories, regulate emotions, and maintain energy balance. Without sufficient sleep, physical and mental health deteriorates rapidly, emphasizing that wakefulness has natural limits. The brain uses chemical signals, such as rising adenosine levels, to enforce rest, ensuring that restorative sleep cannot be postponed indefinitely. Recognizing this limitation highlights the importance of prioritizing regular sleep. It shows that sleep is not a luxury but an essential biological requirement, built into the body to preserve health, cognitive function, and emotional well-being over a lifetime. Even resting quietly, without fully sleeping, provides benefits to the brain and body. Sitting or lying in a calm, dimly lit environment reduces sensory input and mental activity, allowing the nervous system to relax. Heart rate slows, muscles loosen, and stress hormone levels drop, which contributes to a lighter form of restoration. While it may not replace full sleep, quiet rest still helps reduce fatigue, improves focus, and lowers tension. The brain can engage in low-level processing, organizing thoughts and emotions, even during periods of wakefulness. Brief rest also partially clears accumulated adenosine, preparing the body for the next opportunity to sleep. This is why short pauses, meditation, or quiet reflection can feel rejuvenating, especially during long days. Recognizing the value of quiet rest demonstrates that sleep exists along a continuum, from full restorative sleep to partial relaxation, each providing a measurable benefit to mental and physical well-being. The concept of quiet wakefulness refers to a state where the body and mind are relaxed, alertness is low, and sensory input is minimized, without full sleep occurring. In this state, heart rate decreases, muscles loosen, and the brain begins to shift towards slower wave activity, similar to early sleep stages. Quiet wakefulness allows partial recovery, reducing mental fatigue, stress, and physical tension. People often experience this during meditation, resting in a dark room, or sitting calmly in nature. The practice supports emotional regulation and gives the nervous system a break, helping prepare the brain for restorative sleep later. While it does not replace deep non-REM or REM sleep, quiet wakefulness strengthens the brain's ability to transition smoothly into sleep, especially when used consistently. This state illustrates that the brain and body benefit from periods of calm, even when complete sleep is not possible, showing that rest exists along a spectrum, from light relaxation to full restorative cycles. When the brain is fully relaxed, it naturally moves towards sleep because the systems promoting alertness gradually quiet down. Heart rate slows, breathing becomes steady, and brain waves shift from active beta and alpha patterns to slower theta and delta waves. As sensory input is reduced, the nervous system receives signals that it is safe to rest. This allows the brain to begin the organized transitions through light sleep, deep sleep, and eventually REM stages. Relaxation reduces stress hormones, lowers muscle tension, and minimizes mental chatter, which together remove barriers that often keep people awake. Even if someone has struggled with insomnia, patience and maintaining a calm environment can give the brain the time it needs to engage these processes naturally. Understanding this shows that sleep is not forced, but emerges as the body and mind recognize that rest is safe, necessary, and inevitable, emphasizing the importance of creating conditions that support this natural progression. Patience is often the missing ingredient in overcoming sleeplessness, because trying to force sleep only increases tension. People frequently check the clock, worry about losing rest, or mentally push themselves to sleep, which stimulates alertness and activates stress pathways. By contrast, allowing the mind to settle without expectation gives the brain the freedom to follow natural sleep signals. Patience also helps reduce anxiety about occasional wakefulness, which in itself can perpetuate insomnia. Techniques such as quiet reflection, slow breathing, and acceptance of wakefulness demonstrate that waiting calmly can facilitate the transition into sleep. Over time, consistent patience teaches the brain that nighttime is safe and that rest will occur naturally. This mental approach highlights that sleep is a process, not a goal to be forced, and that releasing control allows physiological systems to guide the transition into restorative sleep effortlessly, making patience a critical factor in achieving quality rest. Insomnia has existed throughout human history because the brain's natural alertness mechanisms are universal and were shaped by evolutionary survival needs. Even in ancient times, humans experienced nights of wakefulness when danger, hunger, or environmental changes triggered vigilance. The quiet of night often intensified thoughts and worries, making sleep elusive. Without modern technology, people still encountered mental overactivity, stress, or physical discomfort that disrupted rest. Historical records and literature describe sleepless nights, demonstrating that the struggle to fall asleep is not a new phenomenon. This shows that insomnia is a natural part of human experience, rather than a modern invention caused solely by artificial light or screens. Understanding this historical perspective helps normalize occasional sleeplessness and reduces anxiety about struggling to sleep. It also reveals that humans have long found ways to manage wakefulness, relying on behavioral strategies, environmental cues, and mental approaches to help the brain eventually rest. People in the past often treated sleepless nights with calm acceptance rather than anxiety. Instead of panicking about lost sleep, many would engage in quiet, soothing activities such as reading by candlelight, journaling thoughts, gentle stretching, or walking slowly. They understood that forcing sleep was counterproductive, and that patience and relaxation were more effective for eventual rest. Social and cultural practices also encouraged evening routines, including dim lighting, quiet spaces, and relaxation before bedtime, which naturally supported the circadian rhythm. In some cultures, brief periods of wakefulness were even considered normal, used for reflection, prayer, or planning for the next day. This calm approach minimized stress hormones, allowed the mind to settle, and supported the brain's natural transitions into sleep. Studying these historical practices provides insight into human resilience and the effectiveness of non-forcing strategies, showing that sleep has always been a process influenced by environment, mindset, and routine, rather than something that can be commanded by sheer will. Nighttime often provides a quiet space for reflection, because the world around us is calm and distractions are minimal. With less noise, fewer social interactions, and dim lighting, the mind naturally turns inward. Thoughts, experiences, and emotions from the day emerge more clearly, allowing people to process events, evaluate decisions, and plan for the future. This reflective state can feel intense or comforting, depending on mood, but it also has a purpose. The brain uses this time to organize memories and process emotions. Even when sleep is slow to come, this period is not wasted, as it helps mental clarity and emotional balance. The brain's tendency to become reflective at night explains why some of the most creative ideas, insights, or solutions arise in the quiet hours. Understanding this shows that sleepless moments can have value, and that nighttime is not just for rest, but also for mental processing and internal reflection. Sleep is a natural process, not a task that can be forced through effort or willpower. The brain and body have built-in systems, like circadian rhythms and chemical signals, that guide the transition from wakefulness to rest. Sleep occurs when these systems are allowed to function without interference. Trying to control or rush sleep often increases stress and alertness, which can delay its onset. By recognizing sleep as a natural process, people can focus on creating supportive conditions, dim lighting, comfortable environment, relaxation, and consistent routines, rather than worrying about timing or performance. Accepting sleep as an automatic biological process helps reduce mental resistance, making falling asleep easier and more reliable. This perspective shifts the focus from forcing rest to supporting natural patterns, emphasizing that sleep is an inherent function of the body, carefully regulated by physiology, and requires trust in the brain's ability to manage it efficiently and effectively. The body already knows how to sleep because it has evolved systems specifically designed for rest. Circadian rhythms, sleep pressure from adenosine accumulation, hormonal signals, and nervous system responses all work together to create the conditions necessary for sleep. Brain waves naturally transition from active wakefulness to lighter sleep, and then to deeper restorative stages. Muscle tension decreases, heart rate and breathing slow, and mental activity gradually reorganizes. Even if a person experiences insomnia occasionally, these mechanisms remain intact, waiting for the right environmental and behavioral cues to function. Understanding that sleep is instinctive reduces the anxiety about needing to control it. By providing supportive routines, calm environments, and relaxed focus, the body's natural sleep systems take over effortlessly. Recognizing this helps people trust that the physiological processes guiding rest are reliable, and that sleep will occur once the brain and body receive the proper signals without external pressure or conscious effort. Forcing sleep is unnecessary because the brain and body are already equipped to manage rest. Efforts to push the mind into sleep often increase tension, mental chatter, and physiological alertness, which actually delay rest. Sleep emerges naturally when conditions, like a calm environment, dim lighting, and relaxation, align with the brain's built-in signals. This shows that trying to control sleep is counterproductive, and that the most effective approach is to support the body's processes rather than override them. By reducing worry, creating consistent routines, and practicing relaxation, the body transitions into sleep more efficiently. Forcing sleep is not only unnecessary, it can create a cycle of frustration that perpetuates insomnia. Trusting the body's natural rhythm, allowing the mind to settle, and providing gentle environmental cues ensures that sleep occurs as it is designed to. A restorative, automatic, and essential biological function that maintains health, cognitive function, and emotional balance without conscious effort. Relaxation allows the brain to transition naturally into sleep by signaling the nervous system that it is safe to rest. When a person focuses on calming the body and mind, heart rate slows, breathing becomes steady, and muscle tension decreases. Brain waves gradually shift from active beta patterns to slower alpha and theta waves, preparing the mind for light sleep. Mental chatter fades and stress hormones decline, removing barriers that often keep insomnia active. This process does not require effort or force. It is the natural response of a body and brain that have evolved to rest efficiently. Quiet reflection, gentle breathing, or a calm environment reinforces these signals, allowing the transition to sleep to occur effortlessly. By prioritizing relaxation rather than forcing sleep, the brain can follow its own rhythm, moving smoothly through the stages of rest. Understanding this emphasizes that sleep is a natural process, and patience and calm are the most effective tools for allowing it to happen. Sleep often arrives unexpectedly, usually when the body and mind are relaxed and free of pressure. Many people notice that the harder they try to fall asleep, the more elusive it becomes. Yet when attention is gently shifted away from sleep itself, through calming routines, soft music, or slow breathing, the brain naturally moves into rest. This sudden arrival of sleep is a result of the body reaching the right balance of sleep pressure, chemical signals, and relaxed mental state. It reminds us that sleep is not something to control consciously, but a process that emerges when conditions are favorable. Moments of wakefulness, quiet reflection, or gentle relaxation are all part of preparing for this transition. Recognizing that sleep can appear unexpectedly reduces anxiety and allows the mind to remain calm. Trusting this process helps the brain and body follow their natural rhythm, making falling asleep easier and more reliable over time. Even after a long day, the mind eventually becomes quiet when given the right conditions. Thoughts slow, mental activity softens, and internal chatter decreases as alertness fades. Environmental cues like dim lighting, a comfortable bed, and quiet surroundings signal the brain that it is safe to rest. Relaxation techniques, such as slow breathing or gentle stretching, reinforce this process, allowing attention to move away from worries or racing thoughts. As mental noise subsides, the nervous system shifts toward restorative sleep stages. This quieting of the mind is gradual and natural, reflecting the body's ability to regulate rest without external pressure. Understanding this helps reduce anxiety about sleeplessness, emphasizing that persistent effort is unnecessary. By allowing mental calm to emerge, the brain can follow its built-in patterns, supporting memory consolidation, emotional balance, and physical restoration. Over time, the mind's natural quiet prepares the body for a night of restorative, uninterrupted sleep. While listening, the calming idea to remember is that sleep may already be slowly arriving, even without noticing it. The brain and body work continuously to regulate rest, guided by chemical signals, circadian rhythms, and the reduction of stress and alertness. Gentle attention, quiet reflection, and relaxation create the perfect environment for this natural process. Even small signs like slower breathing, relaxed muscles, or softer thoughts indicate that the transition into sleep has begun. By allowing the mind to rest and releasing the pressure to fall asleep, the body naturally progresses through light, deep, and REM sleep stages. This understanding reassures that sleep is not a forced action, but a subtle, inevitable process that the body performs automatically when supported. Trusting this rhythm allows the listener to surrender to calm, knowing that restorative rest is happening gently, and by simply listening, the journey toward sleep may already be underway, quietly preparing the mind and body for a peaceful night.